Well, this was an interesting game. You guys know, if you've seen this channel over a period of time, you've been watching me for a while, I'm a massive fan of Sebastian Honet's Stuttgart. I got him Honet before in a video I did him months ago, but I now know that what the B looking thing means in the German language. Regardless, that was a random little bit of information that nobody cares to know about. But they lost away at the Bernabeu to Real Madrid 3-1, and as much as that scoreline looks fairly one-sided, it wasn't, and I thought Stuttgart, especially in the first half, more than provided Real Madrid with a threat and gave them a game. And tactically, I thought very impressive. It wasn't different to what Stuttgart usually do. It was very much within their game plan, how they approached this game. But it really did catch Real Madrid out at points with the way they progressed through the lines, the confidence they have in the possession when playing through. And Madrid had to make a half-time change to really get the best out of them and their off-the-ball shape. As much as they were threat either way in the first half, and ultimately when Real Madrid have the quality that they have, that wins you games. And a few defensive mistakes, especially in the wide areas from Stuttgart. As a result, Real Madrid come out of this with that 3-1 win. But Stuttgart shouldn't at all be downhearted or feel negative about that result, because one of two reasons. One, I thought they provided a good enough performance that you can have a little bit of hope in the games going forward. And two, away at the Bernabeu, that is going to be the hardest game you'll have to play. You won't play a game harder than that. So everything after, when you've looked as good as you've looked there, should give you a bit of confidence going forward. But we're going to go on to the game now, the Real Madrid attacking phase, first of all. So Madrid would build up, as you can see here, 2-3-2-3, with the forward two having a bit of a distance between the forward three. So Bellingham and Valverde would be more in the build-up as opposed to connecting with the front three. And Stuttgart would press high. They wouldn't press as aggressively, to be fair, and I think the reason for that is because Real Madrid would build up very wide, and there was a numbers disadvantage for Stuttgart in this area that they did struggle to manage with at points, and Real Madrid did get a bit of joy building out and progressing play from the back. Stuttgart did have some success pressing it early on in the game, but as then the game goes on and you're chasing the game a little bit more and you're using up energy in the legs and you're not getting that goal, so your confidence is dropping, spaces open up. And it would be in these situations where the two forward players would press the centre-backs, the wingers on the full-backs. Either Carrizal or Stiller, one of them would move up into Chouameni, who would offer the deeper option and would look to progress him going. And let's say if Courtois would show on his left-hand side to pass the ball, Stiller would move across to Mark Bellingham out of the game. If he was to then take it back onto his right and then show for the ball this side, he would then move across to Valverde and try and block that passing lane up into these players here. You'd also maybe get Undav or Milo dropping off of their markers a little bit to protect that space in between and sort of work in between, shadowing a player while pressing the other, just to get in a position where we can do that. Furyk or Llewellyn could do the same with the wingers and the midfielders. So this did give invitation for this to happen a little bit, where it gave Courtois a bit of an easier time playing out, where he could play it to Carvajal or Rudiger, and they could get going this way. And then as a result, you'd see Stuttgart then trying to close them down on this side of the pitch by squeezing them over here, with the team following suit, and you'd either get the far-sided winger free or you'd get the far-sided centre-back free. So Llewellyn could push up into Rudiger, we could come inside to Bellingham and allow Milo to push onto Rudiger, or he could stay out wide, Mark Mendy, and Milo could move back into Bellingham. So it was seen as those were the freer options. But again, Real Madrid did get a bit of joy building up through these areas because of how wide the press was and how much they stretched the pitch. A movement or just one player not doing their job and moving from marker to marker, space would be created, and they could always successfully create passing angles through these situations. Real Madrid, especially Bellingham, I thought Bellingham was crucial in these build-up stages. Just his ability to hold on to the ball, evade the press and the pressure of whoever was on him, to then turn and play it forward is key. I thought Bellingham in these first stages, when it was a bit difficult for Real Madrid, was brilliant. You would get the centre-back contributing, but only if Mbappe would drop in to try and get on the ball in these deeper areas, or Vinicius or Rodrigo. Madrid's front three is fluid, so you can see them all in any of these front three positions. They're all comfortable in any of those forward roles, but that would be the only time they'd really engage, and it would usually be Chabot as opposed to the Rualt, I believe his name is. Sorry, I'm not as familiar with the new Stuttgart centre-backs after the sellings in the summer. So that would be a threat, but to be fair, Mbappe never really got on the ball in these deeper areas enough to make it count. But where Stuttgart were vulnerable and where Real Madrid exploited them huge was the wide areas. So we're going to start with Vinny Jr. If he would drop in a little bit deeper to receive the ball on this side, if Real Madrid could beat the Stuttgart press, then he could get one-on-one with Wagnerman. And Wagnerman couldn't get his distances right at all with Vinny Jr. He was neither pressing him nor standing up enough where he could block the space in behind. And he got suckered into positions where Vinny Jr. could just use his acceleration to take the ball away, run down the line, and create opportunities that way. Now, it's easier to talk about stopping Vinny Jr. as opposed to actually stopping him. But Wagnerman, I thought, just kept getting caught in positions where he was in no man's land. He wasn't protecting the space in behind, or he wasn't engaging him and unsettling him and forcing him into an option where he could only pass backwards. As I say, just struggled all game. So that was an option. And also, once Vini Jr. had it on this left-hand side, then Mbappe would offer the run in behind to create more space, whether that's to receive it in behind or dragging a mark down that just created a bit more in that midfield area. And we know what Bellingham and Valverde are like. They have fantastic engines and running power to get quickly into space that gets created with the likes of Mbappe and Rodrigo and Vinicius running behind. Or on the right-hand side for Madrid, that also caused a threat where they could build up through Rodrigo, who again would look to drop in, not necessarily to beat his man one-on-one, as Vinny Jr. would do. It would be more so to link up. Bellingham could offer Valverde or even Lucas Vazquez in these situations where it would be the use of a third-man runner. So let's just say if Valverde showed for the ball here, then Bellingham could make a massive dash in behind to receive the ball. Maybe Vazquez could overlap with Rodrigo if he then decided to move inside and create that space on the overlap for the ball to be fired in, or it could be a 1-2 for his own benefit. So the pass inside to Bellingham or Valverde, and he'd make this run in behind here to receive it and get the ball into the more advanced areas where he could create from there. And if they couldn't maybe break through the lines on this area of the pitch, then what they could also succeed in is if the defence got dragged across and Stuttgart were covering over into this side of the pitch, then this would create the long ball. And Madrid are very good about this, with Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. being more confident playing on the left. Mbappe would drag in Wagnerman a lot more narrow so that he would try and prevent that quick ball from going in behind here. But as a result, if they could get a bit free and with the technical quality of Valverde, Bellingham, and Tchouaméni, then this pass could get fired on to Vinny Jr. And again, Wagnerman struggled all game. Admittedly, he had the added threat of Mbappe, but got caught with his positioning time and time again. And once you give Vinny Jr. the type of space that he had in this game, he can hurt you. His crossing was a little bit wishy-washy at points, but he was seriously hurt. And that Stuttgart defence with his pace. And I say Wagnerman will thank Christ that this isn't a traditional or a previous Champions League group stage game and that he has to play him again. One time, he's done, and they'll be happy about that. I will say as well, Real Madrid's build-up in the second half got a lot better because they made a substitution. Carvajal went to right back and they brought on Eder Militao at right centre back. So let's just pretend that Vazquez is Eder Militao for now, just for simplicity. And it would go from being a sort of 4-3-3, 2-3-2-3 to then being a 2-4-4, which is, as we'll see from Stuttgart, very similar to what they were pulling off. And this would push Stuttgart's press into a 4-4-2 with, as you can see here, just very flat lines against each other. And Bellingham and Mbappe could operate a little bit deeper. And this did force specifically Chabot into making these movements coming up here to impress either Mbappe or Bellingham, typically Mbappe on the left, which then created space for the wide areas. Rodrigo and Vinny Jr. to go for transitional opportunities and attack the space in behind. And as I was just speaking about, Wagnerman struggled with Vinny Jr. Mittelstadt got caught with Rodrigo, and Madrid got their first goal of the game through a mistake from Mittelstadt with this ball going over the top for the player making the run inside because of the space created. And then that set Madrid on their way. With the gaps now between the centre back and full back, Stuttgart were a lot more vulnerable and they couldn't adapt and they couldn't press well enough because Madrid were happy letting Stuttgart press onto them if they could go backwards to then play the direct option. Very well played by Ancelotti. He adapted, he used Stuttgart style against them effectively, and you have to credit him. He's not just an eyebrow raiser, he's a tactician of the highest order. Stuttgart would build up in their 2-4-4, inviting pressure as they want to do, as the centre midfielders would narrow up and look to receive the ball, bringing Bellingham and potentially Tchouaméni onto him, as he would initially look to drop in on Milo to help prevent that back line from getting overwhelmed, but he would get brought onto Stiller or Carrasor as the build-up would progress. The fullbacks would stay wide for Stuttgart, and there would be rotations. There'd be, say, if Carrasor moved up into here, then you maybe get Wagnerman coming in centrally with the centre-back moving out a little bit wider, just helping disrupt that Real Madrid shape. And Real Madrid's press was poor, and it was also a little bit too fluid at points, which you never really hear when describing a pressing shape. A build-up stage, a possessional stage, yeah, that can be described as fluid, but the players that would find themselves in certain positions, so Valverde would occasionally be pressing with the front two. Occasionally it would be Rodrigo, it would be Bellingham, Vinicius. They'd all take turns and they'd all have to drop in and fulfill the roles that the other was doing. So, it was almost a bit too all over the place. And Bellingham, I don't think, is made to be a disciplined holding midfielder in a pressing stage. I think he needs to be pressing alongside the forward players. We know that Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo aren't amazing in their covering and in their one-on-one defending and tracking of runs from the wide areas. And Valverde getting caught up the pitch, as much as he's got the legs and the recovery ability to get back into shape, it just didn't really feel like this was where he was going to be at his best, because the threat for Stuttgart isn't the centre backs, it's the holding midfielders getting on the ball and using their press resistance to play through. And so at points when they had these combinations in deeper areas and a fullback or a centre midfielder made a movement off of their marker into space to receive the ball, this left Madrid stranded, as again they would lose their markers pretty consistently throughout this. And at points then, this created space for the front four. As the back four for Real Madrid were then left in decisions: do they engage or do they drop off and try and maintain space? And that was always going to be an issue. And then with the players running behind, like the wingers that had space to run inside or outside, these were issues. And as a result, it just came from Real Madrid just letting runners move off of them a bit too easily without any real consistent pressure on the ball. But it was quality build-up from Stuttgart, and you have to give credit. And even if it wasn't through the shorter build-up stages, they would also allow Milo and Undav to drop in a little bit deeper to receive the ball, bring in Rudiger or bring in Carvajal or bring in Vasquez onto him in these situations, creating a lot of space in that back line that Furyk or Llewellyn could attack. So a quick little interplay between these front two. Milo could get a little bit of space, turn on Rudiger and play the ball into this area here, as Llewellyn could move inside Mendy, or as I was just saying, on the opposite side as well. And those spaces were getting created all day for Stuttgart. And as I said, Madrid mirrored that with their change in the second half on the ball. But that was how they were looking to attack Real. And even if they couldn't create in this area, with the central space that was opened up, if Madrid did decide to narrow up, then it would create the space out wide that they could still play the ball to the winger rushing on, who, once he received the ball, would then get the overlapping run of the fullback to use as an option going forward. And again, there was a real lack of tracking the runners from those wide areas. Sometimes when Valverde found himself in those areas, he would do a good job, because Valverde is an absolute engine of a player. But typically you'd find it being Vinicius or Rodrigo, and as I said, they're just not aware enough to track these runs a lot. So there was always space that they could work with. Some good saves from Courtois, as he's wanted to do, keeping him in it. And just maybe a poor bit of finishing at points really limited their ability to put some of this good spell of possession away. And in the first half, I thought for about half an hour, 35 minutes, they were the much better team in this game and deserved to be in front. To really passive play from that Real Madrid press just made it easy from points. Milo maybe coming out into this area where a pass lane could easily be created with Carazor narrowing up, Wagnerman staying out wide, Royale coming out into this position here, and Nubel or whoever could just fire that pass in there, with Rudiger then having to commit. And Vasquez, like the Stuttgart fullbacks were getting done, and he was getting pulled all over the place. He wasn't sure whether to engage, whether to drop off, and he got caught in the middle of no man's land time and time again. Got a booking in the first half, which would have contributed to his substitution in the second half. But once that sub was made, Stuttgart weren't as threatening on the break. I thought with Militao in the middle of the park, Carvajal pushed out into the right back position because he didn't cope as well with this position here, and sometimes he'd be used as a bit of a decoy. That he'd almost be pinned back a bit by Undav to allow Milo more space in the central area to get on the ball and create, with his brilliant technical ability to find those passes in behind and through the angles that was created. Took his goal well from a corner, a fantastic header across goal that Courtois had no chance for. But vulnerabilities in that Real Madrid defence, vulnerability in the press. But as I said at the start of the video, quality wins out. But I still give Stuttgart all the credit in the world. They gave an impressive account for themselves, and they can only hold their heads high coming out of this game. Like the video if you like the video. Dislike it if you disliked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Comment down below and tell me what you thought of it either way. And I'll see you next time, lads. Bye bye.